Good morning. Well, those of you who've seen my last video will recognize this location. I'm back at Middleton Top. This is kind of a follow-on walk from the previous one. The previous walk I did was amazing, probably one of, if not the best walk that I've done this year. I enjoyed it so much. I went to some incredible locations, but there were things I left out, and there was a little bit of unfinished business from that walk. So today's walk is a follow-up. Got a number of objectives for today's walk. And a little bit like last time, I just don't know what I'm going to be able to succeed in doing and what I'm not going to be able to succeed in doing. It's one of those things where you won't know until you try, and I'm just not familiar with this area to know already, to know in advance what's possible and what's not possible. So we're going to find out, but hopefully there will be some amazing locations and some great stuff on today's walk. So this morning I've taken the path which ended the last walk, and I've gone on to Middleton Moor. Once on Middleton Moor, I've gone the opposite direction from where I went last time. So this moor is not marked as access land, and there are a couple of paths marked on the map. There's a trig point on here somewhere, but it's not on a footpath, so I wasn't sure whether I could access it or not. I thought I could. From what I could see of the moor last time, it's all pretty open and there is the implied right of public access. So I'm going to try and find the trig point, see if I can get to it. As you can see, it's very murky and very cloudy and misty and foggy. It is just low cloud, I think, and I think it is going to lift. Hopefully it's going to lift. I think I can see the trig point. It's not very easy to see it because of the fog. Hopefully I can access it. Well, what I thought was the trig point wasn't the trig point, and I don't think we can access it because it's over there somewhere, and there is a fence stopping me getting there. But I've seen this. That's very deep. I don't know if you can make it out, but there are rungs to climb down. So unfortunately I've given up on trying to get to the trig point. I don't think you can without crossing over a barbed wire fence, at least one barbed wire fence, and possibly a dry stone wall as well. So we'll not do that. It's a little bit annoying, but never mind. So my last walk here, right near the beginning of the walk, I got to the main gates of Intake Quarry, and you couldn't see anything, and it was spiked on top and it was locked. And then I went a bit further along, and I said there was a path that went around it and that you might be able to see something from the other side. Well, here we are around the other side, and look at this. Absolutely incredible. I love how you can only see the bottom part of those wind turbines. So what a difference 2 weeks make. So last time I just walked along there, but now it's all fenced off and there's a temporary pedestrians only path. Looks like they're doing something with this old farm ruin. So here I am back at the main entrance that I passed last time I was here. And that's the first part of the walk complete. Mixed success, the first part of the walk. We didn't get to the trig point. I probably could have got to it, but you couldn't see it in that fog, in that low cloud. And I think you would have had to take quite an indirect route. You wouldn't have just been able to follow a straight line to get to it. So I couldn't be bothered with that. But we got some amazing views down into Intake Quarry. And we saw a couple of unexpected mine shafts. So yeah, so far, so good. So over there, if you can make it out in the murk, is another big quarry, Middle Peak Quarry. And that is probably one of my main objectives for today's walk, but I've really struggled to figure out how I can potentially get into the quarry. I know it's possible because I've seen video of people actually in the quarry, but I don't know how they got in there, and I've never actually visited that quarry before, so I'm not familiar with it. So we'll have a look and see what is possible. So I'm now walking along a footpath that kind of takes you through the quarry. Most of the quarry is off to that side, but there's a bit of it off to that side. And so far I can't see any obvious way of getting in. Hopefully we'll get some good views though. Many of the videos I've seen on YouTube are drone videos where people have just flown their drones over. And they got to see all kinds of stuff on the drone footage. I know there is quite a bit of interesting stuff in the quarry. So they've made it as difficult as they can for people to actually view it. You've got all these big piles of earth and rubble trying to obscure the view. But in my opinion, that's just really counterproductive. It just makes me want to look. See, I see that as a challenge. Why can't they just let you look at the view? Especially as people have drones and they can just fly over. It's a little bit over the top. Razor wire. So you could very easily get over here, but I don't think you'd have anywhere to go. Just some nice views. Now the OS map shows a public footpath going right into the quarry, somewhere around here. I think possibly it would have been over there somewhere. And they've blocked off the public footpath, which I think is a criminal offence, whereas trespass is a civil offence. So this is known as the star disc. I'm not entirely sure what it's for. Something to do with promoting looking at the stars, but oh, I see there are. And that's unfortunate, because that's probably the best vantage point here, and potentially views over to the quarry. The steps may be closed off, but there's nothing stopping you walking up the bank. And there are some fairly good views here. So it looks like you can get into a little bit of the quarry, not the main quarry, but a little bit of the quarry down here. There's nothing stopping me going down here. I think it is completely separated from the rest, though. Well, obviously this part of the quarry has officially been opened up to the public. Why not the rest of it? Why not the stuff with all the interesting things in it? So even in this area that is open to the public, they can't resist with the signs, can they? Okay, if I knew that you could park here, then I would have saved myself a bit of money. £7 in fact, parking at Middleton Top. But I'll know for next time I come here. So I've not done with Middle Peak Quarry yet. It's not defeated me yet. But for now, I'm going to go and check out a few other things. I think this used to be the smithy. Look at these buildings. Okay, so here's the church. I don't know if it's open. I hope it is, because there's something of interest inside. So it looks like the church is locked, unfortunately. Oh, I might try it again in a bit, because apparently it's normally open. But there is something of interest here. There is an engraving, a stone engraving, which predates this church. In fact, it doesn't even come from this church. And it's of the Toad Man. So I have mentioned the Toad Man before. Although I think I pronounced it Told Man. Apparently it's pronounced more like Toad. Toad Man. The Toad Man I mentioned on a walk on Bleaklow. It's connected to certain supernatural stories connected to Bleaklow. But originally, Toad Man's origin was to do with mining, the mining industry. And the Toad Man was believed to be some kind of spirit, some kind of creature, some kind of... I'm not sure what you would describe it as actually. You may have heard of Tommy knockers. I think that the Toad Man was something very similar to the Tommy knockers. Something that would sometimes help miners and sometimes lead miners to their doom. And I know that it's a custom in this part to light a candle to the Toad Man every year. So there is an engraving in this church, which, as I say, wasn't originally in this church and predates this church, of the Toad Man. And I was hoping to see it, but unfortunately not. Okay, well, I've just walked all the way through Wirksworth, apart from the town centre itself, which was very interesting. The rest of it was a bit boring, so I haven't filmed anything. I'm gonna head back in, but parallel up here, because there's points of interest up here. So one of the things that dictated today's route to a certain extent was this railway line, which I think is now a restored heritage railway line. But there aren't that many places where you can cross, so that kind of dictated where I had to walk today. So what inspired this part of the walk were the place names on the map. This bit of woodland here is called Hob Wood. And somewhere up here, there is Hob Hall. And there are other interesting place names around. Hob, of course, is another name for the devil. We're on a track. We've got this big gate going all the way across the track. There's a public footpath here. The gate's completely locked up. That's where you need to go. Right next to a barbed wire as well. So there is a bit of an atmosphere to this place. It seems quite forsaken. I don't think many people walk along here. I think it has or at least had a bad reputation, this area, with Hob Hall, which I believe is the farm that's just up there. You can't see it. And also the name of the place up ahead as well, which I'll tell you about when we get there. I wasn't expecting a meal. So we're not going to get to it, I don't think, unless we go a bit further. It's probably not worth doing that. But there is a farm called Boggarts Inn Farm just up here. So we've got Boggarts Inn Farm, we've got Hobs Wood, we got Hobs Hall. This is clearly an area you don't want to be going by yourself late at night. Interesting. Well, it's not clear on the map exactly where Boggarts Inn Farm is. I thought it was this clump of buildings here, but I think it's just up there. And as I've come all this way, I may as well go up to it. This stream here, Fee, is the one that supplies the mill. So I think that must be it there. So if this is it, I found a path that takes me right in front of it. Look at these views. No sign. I mean, if you're going to live somewhere named Boggarts Inn Farm, you would have thought you'd put a sign up.
Years ago, and then over 150 years. In modern day parlance, t'old man means the old man, and spirit that minds me. If a miner looked after me, I'd look after them.
I feel very lucky to have been able to get inside the church and have a look around. It's very interesting in there. And of course the highlight was to see the Toad Man. I'm still not sure how it's pronounced. But yeah, very interesting. And it's 12:30, so a bit of a late lunch for me on a walk, but I'll make use of this bench. The Red Lion Hotel is clearly an old coaching inn. Okay, well, back at Middle Peak Quarry, kind of. It's a bit further over there. So I'm going to try walking around it. Now, this is the one part of the walk which I plotted on the map without checking to see whether you could go along here, whether it's safe to go along here. I don't know if there is going to be a pavement all the way along this road. Hopefully there will be, but this road will take us around the side of the quarry. Luckily there is a pavement all the way along this road. Something here and to something here connected to the quarry. Quarry's just over there. So the weather forecast for today got it completely wrong. It did say sunshine, but instead it's been dull and overcast and drizzling the entire day. So I've almost walked the entire perimeter of the quarry. Almost, but not quite. Okay, well, you could, if you really wanted to, you could get in there. Clearly, people have got in on this bit of fence. Aha, what's up ahead? Would you look at that? There's a whole bunch of people up here. It's like Disneyland in here. There's loads of people. Okay, so that very well used trail takes you to a viewpoint. There are a group of people already there. And then I could just see, well, firstly, incredible views, well worth it for the views. No obvious way of getting down, no safe, obvious way of getting down to the quarries. But then I could see loads of people actually in the quarries, albeit fairly high up on the tracks, rather than right down at the bottom. I'm guessing, because there are a couple coming this way, I'm guessing this is where they got over. There's yet more people coming. I'm guessing this is what you do. You get over this fence here, and then you make your way down to there, and from there you're in, although it's still fairly high up. Right, well, I've come up to the High Peak Trail just for the very, very, very final little bit, and it is just a very little bit as well. Can't believe I walked all around the quarry before finally finding the bit where you can actually get the views. So yeah, that fence has been trampled down. Just went and had a look at the view. I didn't climb over any standing fences or anything like that, but I didn't expect there to be loads and loads of people there. Clearly it's a popular destination for a Saturday for people to come and do a bit of quarry exploration. So that was a good walk. It was a pretty successful walk. I think I achieved just about everything I wanted to do eventually, although a few things had to be done on the second attempt, like getting inside the church and the quarry. Well, I literally walked all the way around that quarry before getting in. But you know, it was worth doing because I got some good views, especially the bit where I was actually walking through the quarry itself on the public footpath. That was quite interesting. We went back to Intake Quarry from my previous walk, and we managed to get some views into that, and that's pretty amazing as well. Also a bit of devilry on the walk today. With the Boggarts and Hobs, and of course Toad Man himself. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I'll see you next time.